this is Leanne Swift, and this is my presentation on the importance of dedicated staff members at the reference desk. The library where I did my observation is a public library that services the community outside of Houston, Texas. The reference desk is located on the second floor with adult nonfiction, reference books, a computer lab, and 5 study rooms. There's also a conference room where classes are held and multiple tables located all throughout the floor for people to study at. Every time that I observed, there was only one librarian at the desk who was responsible for answering phones, questions, and the management of the study rooms. During my observation, there was a rotation of librarians to the reference desk. No librarian stayed at the desk for more than an hour, and a large chunk of the time at the desk seemed to be spent dealing with study rooms. There's only 5 in the whole library, but they cause a whole lot of issue. There seemed to be a lot of confusion, especially when the librarians changed at the desk. There was no apparent conversation between the librarians during the changes about what kind of questions they'd been getting, how many study rooms were open, how much longer people had in study rooms, anything of that sort. And every librarian was sort of coming up to the desk blind about what had happened or what was coming up. And it seemed to make it a little bit difficult for that new librarian coming to the desk. And the librarians at the desk occasionally walked around the floor, but when this happened, the desk was left empty and the phone was unanswered. And not that it happened very often, but when it did, it was very distracting to everyone studying. You kind of see everyone kind of pop up whenever the phone rang and wasn't answered. The study rooms. There's only 5, like I mentioned, in the library, but they're extremely popular. Every room was full every time I observed. The rooms are guaranteed for 2 hours, and a Form 5D must be left at the reference desk before receiving the key to the room. And a sign is posted at the desk when all the rooms are full, but even when the sign was up, most people came up and asked, when can I get a reference room? Is there one available? How much longer do I have to wait? And like I mentioned, there was a lot of confusion with the study rooms, especially during the transition of staff. And there were a few instances where people were told to leave the room before their 2 hours was up because of the confusion of how long they'd been in the room. And so I never really saw anyone get very upset, but people were frustrated for sure. Like when they were told that they were going to have a room, but they didn't get the room because there wasn't one open because someone hadn't been in there for 2 hours yet. During my observation, there actually was no ready reference questions asked, and everyone who came up to the desk either was inquiring about a study room or they were inquiring about a specific book or resource, and they just wanted to know where those were located. And it seemed to me that they had probably conducted research themselves before actually coming to the library. So they probably, Googled or used Amazon or something to find a book that they wanted and then came to the library to find that book. And I actually did not see a librarian educating a patron on how to search the library catalog. The librarian simply looked up what the patron was requesting and either led them to the book or gave them directions to the book. So there's computers located near the desk that could have been used to show the patrons how to search on their own, but this was not observed. And it sort of seemed like a missed opportunity so that these patrons, if they were able to figure out what they needed on their own, that they would be able to search on their own if they were given a little bit of instruction on how the search of the library catalog worked. I saw no reference interviews during my observation, and when a patron approached the desk with a question, no questions were asked to find out more about what the patron needed. I assume the librarian just thought that they knew what they needed and didn't need to ask any more questions to find out if they were getting exactly what they needed to answer their question. And one reason for this might be the lack of a dedicated reference librarian at the desk for the entire day. Not all of these librarians at the desk are reference librarians, and they're not extremely comfortable with providing reference service. So it makes it sort of difficult to do a reference interview if you're not comfortable with reference in general. I was able to speak with have a discussion with the head of reference. She mentioned the majority of the problems can be attributed to a lack of budget. That's why there's the rotation of the staff. There's not enough to, have a full staff of reference librarians all day, even though she would love that to happen. And she did discuss the possibility of creating a checklist of reference interviews so that anyone sitting at the desk could conduct a reference interview. And that way, even if they weren't 100% comfortable with reference, they could have a checklist to follow to ensure that they were asking the right questions, which might be helpful for both the librarians and the patrons. And because there's so few study rooms, she said it didn't make sense for the library to transition to an online booking system, which could sort of help maybe the confusion and the congestion. But she said since they only have 5 study rooms, it doesn't really make sense to spend the money on creating some sort of online sign up for it. So in conclusion, having dedicated reference staff at the library desk can make a huge difference in the quality of reference service provided. And if no such staff exists at the library, then it's important to implement items like checklists to ensure that patrons are receiving quality service no matter who is at the desk.